The United States and its allies just wrapped up a Middle East security conference in Warsaw, Poland. The conference was supposed to be about a range of issues, including Syria's future and terrorism, but the conversation keeps circling back to Iran as well. Vice President Mike Pence lashed out at allies, accusing them of trying to, quote, break American sanctions against Iran's murderous revolutionary regime, his words. He also urged them to leave the Iran nuclear deal. European nations have argued the U.S. made a mistake by leaving, saying Iran is still complying with the agreement. Joining me now from Washington, Benham Ben Taleblu. He's a research fellow and with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. So, Benham, the goal in Warsaw seemed to be to get European allies to put a little bit more pressure on Iran. Do you think they were successful at this point?
You know, I think Warsaw is going to remain to be seen here. It's going to be a work in progress. They have to translate their rhetoric on Iran into a new reality on Iran. The Trump administration needs to get Europe to issue new sanctions on Iran to cover its wide array of military, missile, and regional developments. The Arab states, of course, need to step up. But I think it's going to be very much a work in progress. And I think we'll see the results or the failures of it throughout 2019.
The vice president also criticized this new financial mechanism. It was created by European nations to kind of go around these sanctions so they could do business with Iran. Do you get the sense, is that talk, or can the U.S. really do anything that could punish these countries?
I think we've seen a remarkable degree of success from the U.S. on the financial pressure side, particularly from the U.S. Treasury Department in the past 6 to 9 months, with the restoration of sanctions first and then the enforcement of them. I think this enforcement could serve as a deterrent mechanism, not necessarily to European countries, but to European businesses who should be deterred from using this new mechanism called the SPV, or a special purpose vehicle. The goal, of course, is to make sure that Tehran does not have revenue coming in as it continues to fund its malign and destabilizing activities abroad. So the U.S., I think, has the capability and the intent to punish what could be an illicit finance vehicle.
And we know Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also used the conference to try and build some support from Arab allies against Iran. Do you think that'll work, given sort of the tension right now still that lingers with the Israeli and Palestinian conflict that appears to be not moving forward?
You know, I think one of the most important and fundamental shifts we've been seeing in the Middle East as Iran is rising, as it's posing more and more of a threat to American partners and allies in the Middle East, is that the Israeli-Palestinian issue no longer is the central defining security and political issue of the Middle East. I think now the question is, how do you contain, check, roll back, and deter a rising Iran? And on that front, I think there are key Arab states that would have much more in concert with Israel than in conflict with Israel. Much of these relationships, if you believe that they're already ongoing, are going to be underground, are going to be more covert. But as the Iranian threat goes, I wouldn't be surprised if they grow and they become a bit more overt.
So if your premise is correct, that it's really all about now Iran, and you've got this dysfunction surrounding the Iran nuclear accord, Europe's not on the same side as the White House, where does that leave relations between the U.S. and Europe?
You know, I'm so glad you mentioned the Iran nuclear deal, because that continues to be the 800-pound gorilla in the room, at least on the Iran threat file between the EU and the United States. The EU is still intent on keeping the deal for economic reasons, of course, but also for political and security reasons, because they believe that the JCPOA was not a flawed deal, whereas the Americans believe it was fatally flawed. So the Europeans are actually looking to keep Tehran afloat, and both Europe and Tehran seem to be kind of waiting out the Trump administration here, hoping that a change in administration could get a change in policy and get the U.S. to come back to that nuclear deal.
Benham Ben Taleblu, thank you very much for joining us, Benham.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.